Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Can you hear me okay? I just want to make sure. Yeah, okay, good. Um, as I say, thank you everyone for joining us. I thought I might start off just with a few brief words of introduction about myself. I go back a long ways with TIBCO, back to the actually back to the very start of TIBCO software. There is a little bit of a history here where TIBCO software was spun out of a predecessor company, and I was, along with the original founder of that company, wrote the business plan to create TIBCO software, which was started in '97, then became a NASDAQ listed public company in 1999. And then about a year, little over a year ago now, year and a half ago, became a private company again as part of the Vista Equity Partners portfolio of companies. So over that history, I've done a variety of things for the company, including being the chief financial officer for almost 4 years, and then chief operating officer until I was appointed chief executive officer at the time of the Vista transaction. And I think one of the interesting things we've seen with the evolution of the TIBCO business is that what we do, the core kind of capabilities that we provide the market, I don't think have ever been more relevant than they are today. You know, we started off as a technology innovator in the world of real-time systems and how to integrate applications in real time, which is a surprisingly complicated problem still today. But as we move into what many people talk about as this fourth industrial revolution, and I think we can cue up the slides at this point. This notion of the fourth industrial revolution is something that was talked about last week as well at the World Economic Forum, and we hear from our customers continuously that the pursuit for all companies today is how to become more fully digital, how to become a digital business. And when we talk about digital business, or analysts like a Gartner or a Forrester talk about digital business, it really relates to this notion of blurring or merging the distinction between, or merging the worlds of physical commerce and digital commerce. It applies to our personal lives as well, to our social interactions. We've seen these trends building for a long time, but today it really is at the forefront of every company's strategy. Is how do they create a seamless and personalized, rich interaction with their customers over a digital channel. And I think a good example of this is what we've seen with airlines over, say, the last decade. If you think about what it was like to fly 10 years ago, you still had quite a bit of interaction with people at the airlines. But today, the kind of experience that all of us want when we fly is really one where we may not talk to a person from the time we find our flight to the time that we book that flight, to the time that we get our boarding pass, pick our special meal, look at our entertainment, get to the gate at the airport is probably the first time that we actually talk to someone from the airline, and it becomes a human-to-human interaction as opposed to a digital experience. Now, that process of digitizing or digitalizing the interaction between the airline and its customers is one that involves integrating and tying together many different systems and data sources and even channels of interaction with the airline. So right from the kind of customer and booking reservation systems that run the airline, the various scheduling systems that the airline uses, all of that has to be tied together as part of that mobile or online application. And then they also need the ability to carry the context for that interaction across the channels. whether it's a kiosk at the airport or it's the mobile app that you're using or the web app that you're using. And we're seeing the same sort of scenario play out across many, many businesses, whether it's retail financial services or it's telcos or it's retailers. All of these industries, virtually every industry that we touch, is targeting the same kind of experience for their customers. And it's obviously it's the nature of things like Amazon and other services that have accelerated this trend towards a rich digital experience for the consumer or for the customer. So if we think what underlies this, if the concept is create this seamless end-to-end experience and it ties together a lot of different assets, what does that really mean? So if we look at the next slide and we look at what ties together this ecosystem, how does a company go about creating this experience that spans the digital and physical world, that ties together all these systems, all these sources of information? Some of it's inside the company, some of the information is outside. If you're a retailer or a logistics provider, for example, you may be very interested in integrating outside data, weather data, for example, to be able to predict or measure the impact on your supply chain or your logistics chain when you're trying to get a package from your operation to that end customer. So what sits at the center of all this is really this notion of an operations hub. We're seeing this increasingly as the kind of concept that customers look to. How do I have this core platform, this core service, this core hub that provides the capabilities and the mechanisms to integrate these various sources of information? And once I have it all integrated, I can then expose that to my customers. If I'm a FedEx or I'm a Macy's or I'm a retail bank or I'm that airline, once I have all these assets integrated, then I can expose that integrated view of the business and the services I offer the customer in a seamless fashion through a mobile device or over a kiosk or an ATM or an app on the web. Now, if we drill into that operations hub, if that's the concept, for TIBCO, our approach to this is something that we talk about as the operations hub for digital business. And you can see on the next slide that we have three core areas that we talk about in our approach to this. The first is integration, how we tie together systems and data sources so that you have a complete view of the business or business process. Analytics is very important in all this because analytics is the way that you measure the performance of the business. And once you've integrated all the data, you can start to do some very interesting things from an analytical perspective in terms of measuring customer behaviors or modeling customer behaviors, modeling business behaviors, how your business is operating end to end. One whole class of emerging solutions in the space that we're involved with relate to the Internet of Things, and particularly how that's applied to industrial processes. And here, think of one big area as preventative maintenance. So we've been working with several companies in the energy space, for example, an oil and gas company, who might have thousands of operating oil wells, and these oil wells have pumps which need regular maintenance. But the trick is, how do you optimize the maintenance of that network of pumps in the most efficient manner? And that requires monitoring telemetric data from these thousands of wells, and then recognizing when, for example, the temperature in a pump is getting too hot or the pressure is increasing too fast, how you then can take preventative action to go and fix that pump before it breaks. This is the big key with optimizing preventative maintenance scenarios, is how do you do it before you have a costly outage? So analytics can play a role across the board. Once you've integrated your systems and information, then you can start to use your insights to optimize your business performance. And that gets to the third area that we focus on, which we talk about as event processing. But more simply, think of this as real-time data. So these are the click streams that may be coming from a website. This is that telemetric data that the energy company might have that I referred to from their wells and pumps. This could be information about, in a telco, about the call traffic or call data records that are passing through their network. So these three areas to us are very key in an effective digital business strategy and creating an effective operations hub for digital business. Integration, real-time data, analytics, and then the last two elements of this are how you wrap all this in a very simple, easy to manage set of APIs so you can expose these services to partners, to customers, and to developers within your own organization. And some of this, of course, is going to happen in the cloud. Some of it's still going to happen in data centers. And it's the ability to go back and forth between cloud and on-prem systems in what is a very hybrid world today. So when we put all these pieces together, this is what we talk about as FastData. And so it's not just looking at historical data. It's about looking at integrated systems and data flows and real-time information to get maximum advantage from your data. And that is what FastData is for TIBCO. How can I optimize the performance of my business in real time as the business is operating? And this is very much the new world that we're looking at for all companies today. This is the fourth industrial revolution. This is the world of digital business. It happens in real time, and it's all about real-time optimization. So if we move ahead to the next slide, I just want to put some of this in context of why TIBCO is, I think, uniquely qualified in our abilities around these concepts. You know, it goes back to the fact that we were one of the early pioneers digitizing financial data on Wall Street and digitizing trading systems and how investment banks used market data. We also were a pioneer in many manufacturing processes, particularly high-tech manufacturing and semiconductor manufacturing. And most recently, our business has continued to branch out into these areas that I talked about with major retailers, how they optimize cross-sell and upsell and their loyalty programs for customers who have opted into those programs, for telcos in terms of optimizing their network behavior, for energy companies, as I mentioned, and still in financial services, particularly on the retail side, about how retail banks create this complete sort of 360-degree digital view for customers, so customers get the best experience from the bank. It also extends into areas like logistics, where FedEx is a major customer of ours, and they're definitely a customer that deals with a lot of real-time data at large volumes, and how they manage that information about packages is extremely important to their business. So over the time since we founded TIBCO in 1997, we've now built the business. We can go to the next slide. Built the business into a roughly $1 billion revenue company with a global footprint spread across 30 plus offices. Our headquarters are in Palo Alto, California, but we have about half our business outside of the US and Canada. Most of that international business is in Europe. So we have just a little over 50% in the Americas, about 40% or so in Europe, and roughly 10% in Asia Pacific. And that's spread across 10,000 plus customers. Now, I think it's important to understand that what we do has this overarching view of this concept of the operations hub and FastData, but customers are able to buy our technology in smaller pieces, certainly. So we still sell a lot of individual products, particularly in the analytics space, and some in areas such as business process management and managing complex workflows for customers. So as we as we move forward with the business, areas of focus, and this will segue into Matt talking a little more about the future of the technology. But these four big areas are: one, the notion of cloud first, and cloud first is an interesting topic for us, because it's not just about how you create cloud services for our technology, how you move from on-prem software to software as a service. It's also about the nature of the technology itself and how it's packaged, how customers develop it, using it, develop applications using it, how they manage it, how they deploy it. Matt will go into a little more detail about that. The other two big areas of focus for us are in some ways derivative of or closely related to the cloud first focus, and that's ease of use and industrialization. Ease of use is not just about making a product look good. It's also about making it easy to get started, having templates, having an environment that integrates with common open source management tools and whatever the DevOps tool chain is for customers. And industrialization is about ensuring that our products are tightly integrated among themselves, that it's easy for customers to use individual pieces and use products together, and that that they can deploy them quickly and get up and running in a high performance mission critical way quickly. Then the last big area of focus for us, more as a business, is shifting more and more of our revenue streams to a recurring revenue model. So what this really means is selling more of what we do as a service or as a subscription to the software that customers buy from us. So with that, I'm going to transition it over to Matt.
Okay, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So just by way of introduction, I'm Matt Quinn. I'm the EVP of products and technology here at TIBCO, and also the CTO. I haven't been with the company for quite as long as Murray, and I haven't had quite as illustrious a career as Murray. I've only had 4 or 5 positions, but listen, I started about 18 years ago, out actually building systems for many of our customers. Hold a variety of different positions, mostly in the engineering and architecture role, and then I think it was probably 4 or 5 years ago stepped into the CTO role, and then just over 12 months ago took over all of engineering. And I've been working very closely with Murray for 15 of those 19 years, and he hasn't killed me yet, so there's always good signs. Next slide, please. So, what Murray laid out with the 4 big things that we're focused on. What I wanted to do was kind of go a little bit back and explain kind of why and how we arrived at those 4 areas. We are seeing a pretty dramatic shift in our marketplace, and that shift has been ongoing for probably 4 or 5 years, but it's probably been the last 12 to 18 months that we've seen the most dramatic change, and it's affecting not just the types of people that we sell to who want to consume our software, but it's also affecting the way that they want to consume our software. And so as we look at our portfolio, Murray went through the FastData platform comprising of the 3 aspects: integration, event processing, and analytics. We also need to look at the marketplace, and what we see is While the CIO still remains TIBCO's primary customer, if you will, for the technology, more and more frequently we're seeing the line of business and also developers, individual developers, making technology decisions where 10 to 15 years ago they certainly didn't. If we even look in our own backyard, our own CMO buys a lot of technology to support the marketing organization, buys a lot of services, a lot of SaaS applications to support the business. As we've seen CMOs and other line of business owners buy technology, it has given rise to the need for things like integration, like business process management and analytics. And so we are really on this strategy of adapting our software so that it can be consumed by more people. If you're an individual business analyst, or you're in IT, or you're a CIO, or you're the chief marketing officer, we believe that the FastData platform and this notion of being able to connect all your valuable assets is critical to your success. Next slide. So we have these four very large initiatives. The three that are probably most pertinent to the product side really starts with this notion of cloud first. Cloud first is an incredibly important initiative for the company, but it's not just simply about taking our great technology and throwing it up to the cloud and calling it good. We've spent a lot of time working with customers over the last 2 years, and we've really broken down our cloud first initiative across all of TIBCO's technologies, but we've broken it down into kind of really four separate kind of aspects of cloud. On one hand, you have managed services. Many customers, specifically in areas like analytics, want TIBCO to build services and manage services for them, either on public infrastructure or on hybrid or private clouds. We also see that the rise of what we're calling XPaaS, which is essentially things like integration platform as a service, analytics as a service, business process management as a service, MDM as a service. And this really, if I go back to the previous slide, is really talking about these lines of business types of applications where people want to be able to do big data. They want to be able to mine their data lake, but they don't always have access to the infrastructure to support those types of initiatives. And it's really for TIBCO to provide the lines of businesses with these types of solutions. There are two other aspects of cloud that become important. One is the rise of enterprise platform as a service. So these are technologies like OpenShift, Docker, and Cloud Foundry that many companies, especially in regulated industries like finance, airlines, and telcos, are really looking at as a next step in their evolution of their own data center technology and platforms. And then finally, we have consumer services. And this is, basically people who are not always super technical, who haven't come from an IT background, but still need to do integration, still need to do analytics, and we need to be able to provide our technology in that way. We recently just launched a service called Simpler, and Simpler is designed for, and it really was designed for people in our marketing department. People who would go into Salesforce.com, output something into a report, upload that into a spreadsheet, do some data manipulation, and then upload that into Marketo. What Simpler does is it provides a data automation, data integration tool, but it's a web service. It doesn't require a computer science degree. It's super simple. And it really kind of cuts out a significant amount of time. And that is still integration, but it's really targeted a different audience. Next slide, please. And obviously across all these four areas, there is this notion of customers who are looking at this from a hybrid perspective. They are looking at it from a private perspective and also from a public cloud. And what we're doing with our technology behind the scenes is being able to we're re-architecting these to go after and to provide it through all these different channels. So the second area that Murray mentioned was ease of use. This is a hugely interesting area. I mean, look, 20 years ago, enterprise software was hit by the ugly stick. I mean, it wasn't designed for a pleasing user experience. The user was contemplated most in some of the designs, but it was at the last part of the development process. TIBCO's really turned this around. We build our products today really from a very strong persona point of view up front. And this is allowing us to broaden out who we talk to with our technology, because it is easier to use and it is easier to understand and solve problems with. And so when we look at areas like big data and analytics, just being able to visualize the data, to bring that in an easy way without spending hours and hours trying to configure complex screens, really gets customers and users to the answer faster. And that's really the point of all of ease of use. We have this very strong mantra in the engineering group, which is really around this notion of time to first achievement. How quickly can somebody use our software and our services, and how quickly can they become experts? But really what that first step is how long does it take for them to accomplish something, to do something that they feel pretty good about? As well as making sure that our user experience is fantastic and leading edge. We're also packaging our software around industry solutions. So we've been doing a lot of work at the moment with what we call connected vehicles. So this comes in multiple different forms and fashions. It starts with this notion that vehicles are getting smarter. And we actually started not with cars, because that's still an evolving space, but we actually started with trains, which are very, very well instrumented with IoT feeds. So working with many train operators, we put together a packaging of our software that takes all of these IoT feeds in, looks at things like crew schedules and the trains themselves, their schedules, any constraints on the system. And it gives train operators, or actually truck operators, the ability to really manage more proactively their entire network that they have to manage. And then obviously, as IoT evolves, and as the notion of connected vehicle evolves, we want to be able to kind of broaden that out to cars as well. Now, that industry solution is using our analytics framework to do the visualization and the analytics. It's using our event processing to take the IoT feeds and all the rules. And then it's also utilizing our integration technologies and many of the other kind of core infrastructure pieces to bring that all together, to do that last mile connectivity. And so you're going to see more and more of these from TIBCO as we go. Next slide. Okay, and then industrialization. This is a couple of different things which I've already mentioned, and Murray also mentioned this. That middle piece is actually really, really interesting and really key. So, look, people want to be able to consume our software in multiple different ways. So one of the things that TIBCO is doing is really embracing not only this notion of ease of use and user experience, but a really, really strong view around DevOps. TIBCO is not trying to build a DevOps practice. What we want to do is make sure that our technology can be used in every single possible architecture and approach, and we're utilizing and leveraging technologies like Docker, like the Cloud Foundry build packs. We're definitely leveraging technologies like Kubernetes and Console, and we're helping customers adapt our software into their environments, and we're trying to make that easier because we believe that is a huge area that we can be successful on. right? I want people to use integration everywhere, not just where they classically think that it needs to go. Obviously, many of our customers use our technologies together, so we are continuing to make sure that we have this platform notion. And then lastly, and we really do see this as part of what Murray mentioned is this fourth industrial revolution, which is we continue to invest in the Internet of Things. It's a huge driver for us around this notion of fast data. It does represent many, many technology challenges because you have so much data coming at you. And we believe it's a really great future use of our technology. And many of our customers today, especially in the energy and transportation, we had many customers in the high-tech manufacturing space using this type of stuff as well. But again, a huge focus for us. Okay, so that's my little section. Murray, I think there's a couple of slides there at the end for you, but I do apologize. My network connection has diminished, I think, over the course of the last 5 minutes. Oh, just one last slide. Sorry. Just from the innovation point of view, we continue to invest very, very strongly in the business. Last year, we actually saw a record number of major releases from TIBCO. This is something that we're going to continue on. Pardon me. We're going to continue to invest very, very strongly in these core focus areas. Next slide. Murray, do you want me to do this one?
Yeah, sure, Matt. Go ahead.
So coming up in May 16th to 19th, we have our annual users conference, TIBCO Now. We're going to be talking a lot about these technologies. We're going to be talking about some new areas that we're also investing in, like graph databases, which we also believe is important around the shift from big data to fast data. And as well as announcing a bunch of new services and new products. So it's going to be a pretty exciting time. Really, really looking forward to it. It'd be great if some of you could actually attend. Next slide.
So I think we'll wrap up our comments here just with a summation of where we're at as a company. If you think about TIBCO's history, we have been an innovator in a whole variety of areas over essentially 20 years or so. And as the business has grown to $1 billion, we now kind of face the next chapter of growth for TIBCO. And as part of that, we've adopted a mantra of sorts for the company that is to simplify and evolve in terms of our go-to-market and the way we run our business. The simplification comes from the notion that this new digital age, this new emphasis on cloud and this next generation of technologies is really about making what we do as easy as possible for our customers to gain access to. And the evolution part of it is probably fairly obvious. It's just us continuing to be an innovator. The company we are today is very different from the company we were 10 years ago. And I think the company that we will be 10 years from now will be different again as we continue to grow and expand our footprint in the market.
Okay, I think we have time for questions.
Thank you both for the presentation. I think a lot of information in a short time, and there must be a lot of questions, so feel free to ask.
So what's the easiest way for people to ask questions? Oh, and there's quite a bit of echo.
Hi.
Hey, Martin.
Hi. So, what I want to question is how do you integrate all these different aspects you were talking about? There are also already many solutions that that are integrating this like data integration. Do you have as TIBCO your own solutions, or do you also use third-party products in this space?
So part of this is really how the company TIBCO evolved. So TIBCO evolved first by having a message bus. And we grew up from that message bus to add integration, to add event processing, and add analytics. And so if you go back behind the scenes, that message bus, as well as we have a distributed data grid that works alongside the bus, are really two of the core technologies that we've built over many years that connects these pieces together. So you can think that the integration, the ESB is feeding the message bus and also the data grid. The event processing engines are working on top of both the messages and the cache. And then analytics is looking at that real-time set of data, as well as integrating data warehouse information and operational data, because sometimes you need to combine both the historical information, operational data, as well as kind of real-time transactions. So it's a short answer.
So you have this
stuff.
Okay.
Yes.
But you don't have a data warehouse solution at this point.
No, and we look. There's a lot of data warehouses out there. That is a pretty quickly evolving space. There are columnar databases now that people are starting to use. There's things like data virtualization that we're actually pretty interested in, and I think it's going to be a little bit of a watch this space. We think that's an important area, but actually having the data warehouses themselves, we want to integrate to them, and we want to integrate with whatever the customer has, not own one.
Okay, great, thank you.
No problem. Okay, do we have any other questions, guys?
So I take another one, if I may. You talked about the ease of consumption, so and the different roles people have in the company, and the different kind of skill sets that they bring within to work within business intelligence solution. So I tried myself a little bit with this TIBCO free version. So I didn't came very far. So, but I'm not a real data guy. So, what or how can you make it easy for people that are not too data driven or not have not a statistical background to learn how to work with the data, show them what the most important data are? How can you make this possible?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and certainly, as we mentioned, this is a huge focus for us on data visualization and analytics. It comes down to a couple of things. One is just pure accessibility. So, today you've typically got two different ways you deliver software. One is as an application, and the second way is as a cloud service. We've spent a lot of time and effort on the cloud service. Spotfire Cloud is a good example, to make that very easy for people to just get access to, let alone just use, right? They don't have to install any software. They can get going straight away. One of the big changes just recently has been the introduction of something called recommendations. What recommendations does is it looks at the data that you want to look at, and it suggests to you different visualizations based on the actual data that you've actually selected. That has shortened that time to first achievement, because now you can actually see examples of those different visualizations based on your data, not just based on something else. And that is a good first step for that new user who hasn't got experience kind of doing data discovery or analytics. The next area where we're looking at is, so there is visualization and data discovery, and then there is kind of predictive analytics. There's a lot of work that we're doing similar to recommendations for the graphs around predictive analytics to suggest different analysis on the types of data sets that you've got. And this breaks down the barrier for people who, look, I'm not a data wonk either. Yeah, but I'm still looking for insights. I'm still looking for interesting things. And I want the system to suggest these things to me. I ultimately want to pick those because I am building my data discovery, but I want the system to help me based on my data. And so that is a huge area of focus. There is a secondary focus, which is making sure that we get the data, the analysis to the right places, right? So whether that is being able to collaborate in different venues, whether that's over email, whether that's over things like GChat or Slack, just the ability to kind of get the analytics kind of in front of more people, which is secondary, but I think is also important in the long run.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, we have another question from Mr. Oliver Eam. He has no microphone, that's why he's just chatting with us. He's asking, do you see cognitive computing like Watson from IBM as a competitor in BI and analytics?
Well, so now you've just hit upon one of my favorite topics. So this was my focus area when I was going through college and doing my masters. Look, Watson is a pretty interesting set of technologies. The word cognitive is probably a little bit of a stretch. It's a very giant data processor with some very well structured semantic data, and that it certainly is an achievement to have got all of that data transcribed. What they're finding, I think, with Watson is that it's not a general purpose solution. It's very domain specific, and it takes a lot of time to kind of prime the system, if you will, for those individual domains. Look, I would say this: I'm glad that IBM did Watson, because I think it does push the conversation around AI and also cognitive sciences in the right direction. To be honest with you, I actually find that the AI pieces that are being built off the backs of what Facebook, Microsoft, and Google are doing to be more generally useful, and we see that there's a good collaboration starting to go on, not necessarily around analytics to begin with, but actually around event processing, where you are trying to get those correlations correct. And that is an area that a lot of these new deep AI toolkits are trying to provide those instant correlations. I think that over the next, AI has been and this entire space is a 50-year startup. For those who follow this space, it had great ideas to begin with, but many of the ideas simply couldn't be accomplished, more due to compute and network limitations than it was necessarily the ideas being bad. As compute gets cheaper and more accessible, as network and storage becomes faster and less of an issue, I think we are going to just rediscover what I call the kind of the golden era of AI before the reality kind of hit. I think we're going to rediscover a lot of that stuff, and I think we're going to see a lot of great movement. We ourselves are investing in some core technologies like graph databases, which are for us, and we also believe for the broader space, a critical ingredient technology to store knowledge and to store data, which is the baseline for a lot of these cognitive solutions. Sorry, you asked the one of my favorite questions.
All right, and then we have one more question from Dr. Wolfgang Martin. Deep machine learning is now focus area of analytics. What are you doing at TIBCO?
So actually, we actually have a long history with learning. And sorry, there's a little bit of so let me kind of skate through. We actually have invested in learning technologies going back, I'm trying to think, Murray, about 7 years. And we actually use learning technologies, and I can go through a little bit more detail, in a variety of different areas. We actually use it in our master data management area in order to do essentially things as very prosaic, but it's still very important around name and address correlation, all the way through on the analytics side, where we also use learning both from a data prep point of view. So we have a lot of learning algorithms at the data prep side in order to scrub the data, but that same technology is then being used in the recommendation engine. So the recommendation engine for Spotfire is not some closed system. It's actually a learning system. It's taking your preferences as you select different graphs based on different data, and it's actually feeding it back locally. And then we have a mechanism to then feed that back, if the customer would like, back to us so that we can also look at it. We acquired a company about 8 years ago, that had some of this core technology. It was out of Princeton, and we've continued to evolve that technology. And again, it's a true classic learning system from a point of view that you can use it straight away, but you can provide it with training sets in order to improve it. It's not quite a neural net inside of it. It's a little bit of a derivative thereof, but there are certainly aspects of a neural net that's part of that technology and then used. And again, goes back to my other answer. We are investing in areas like graph databases because as we think about learning systems, as we look at things like genetic algorithms and other parts of these types of systems, Markov models, neural nets, the ability to store semantic information and knowledge and even unstructured data becomes absolutely critical to the success of these systems. So a lot of work to be done, though, for sure.
Okay,
this has been my favorite interview. These are really cool questions, guys. I never get to talk about this stuff.
That's good, and thank you. If there are no further questions, I'd go for the wrap up and say thank you for your time, Matt. Thank you for your time, Murray, for bringing us up to speed in the DACH region on TIBCO. I'd like to invite all editors also that have participated. If there are any more questions in the follow-up, just to email us and we'll get them answered for you. And I'd like to say thank you for your time. I know it's very early in the morning for you both, so thank you for taking the time and talking to us. And hope to hear a lot from TIBCO in the coming months, which I think we will. And as you said, Murray and Matt, thank you for saying about TIBCO now, and we'll be in touch with the editors about getting them over to see for themselves as well.
Great, thank you everyone.
Great,
thanks. Bye bye.